It is a beautiful time to compose in Erlang. Even just last night, I was talking to Miriam, and she asked me, is it just me, or is it just, is there a lot of stuff actually coming out in Erlang lately? And she's right on. In OTP 18, we got maps finally. In just this version of OTP, ERTS 21, we now have an awesome logging system. If you haven't used it yet, I recommend it. Fred wrote an excellent article on it. I also edited the libraries to that logging system. They're on scriptculture.com. And if you've been following along at scriptculture.com, I've been posting the GUI edited source code for WX. So you can finally start making WX applications, which are, as Eric said, cross-platform, graphical user interfaces that you can share Erlang with your friends, or from Elixir, call it and make desktop applications for your friends or your coworkers. Yeah, so I'm Robert Carbone. Like Eric said, we'll be talking about wxErlang's StyledTextCtrl. It's actually a wrapper around the Scintilla, which is a ancient legacy / it's been around for ages code editor. Yeah, so we're going to go over it. First, I'm going to talk about some theory, and then we're going to go and I'm going to give away some software, so you guys can just start right from there. I'm excited to give away a lot of good stuff. And then we'll go over some gritty details of the StyledTextCtrl, so you don't bang your head against a wall while trying to get the whole thing to work. I'd first like to start with the question that Joe Armstrong emailed to me a couple years ago, almost now, and it was pertaining to our musical backgrounds. He asked me, how do you compose? And I want you to ask yourself this question right now. If Joe Armstrong asked you, how do you compose? And he was talking about music, but it's theoretical, it's philosophical. Like, how would you answer this? How would you, to the people in the audience today and also to the YouTubers in the future, how would you go about answering this question? Because it seems very innocuous at first. And I was like, oh yeah, I'll tell you how to compose. And I start making my email, and I write, and before I know it, I have all these methods, and I'm just not happy with any answer I was writing down. And it wasn't until a couple months ago that the answer really hit me. And it was that I was looking at composing as a discrete, a system of discrete steps, and it's not. Composing, I believe in its true form, is actually a continuous process. Continuous like current, which at the bottom you can see, it doesn't come out very well, but I have to stand for him. Okay. I have to talk into a mic here. Current is at the bottom, and then power or watts is at the top. And you're looking at an electrical diagram because what we're about to do is we're about to go up the Osi Framework, and we're going to land at the top near the application and presentation layer where the StyledTextCtrl really takes form. But if you're new to programming, and if this is your first, whether you're a veteran or whether you're a newbie, this is an excellent place. If you don't know these layers, go onto Wikipedia, learn these layers. Because what's great about Erlang is that it's full stack. Not a lot of languages can actually claim to really traverse the Osi framework like Erlang does. And it does it beautifully. And it does it, it's all pretty much built in at this point. So yeah, the physical layer. Let's talk, this is also known as the Pyre diagram, so I think it's also reasonable to mention Pierre and the Grisp board. We're getting Erlang on the metal now over the last couple of years. If you're interested in actually having Erlang on the metal, go check out Pierre Streitzinger's Grisp board. It is Erlang on the metal, brought all the way down. So let me jump back to current and watts for a second, because this idea of continuous and discrete, as we go up, I want you to think about how you can solve problems in both discrete ways and continuous ways, because you can solve problems, programming problems, if you will, on all layers of the Osi framework. And there's many you can spend your entire career in just one of these layers, like making circuits, for instance, which would be a physical layer construct. Like I said, Erlang is full stack. So I'm going to talk about the OSI in a way that you've probably never heard it, because it's my opinion, but it's a theoretical concept of how we can approach different concepts in programming and how things have evolved. The physical layer is about defining things. Right now, I'm making pressure waves, and your ears are picking up the pressure waves. The physical layer I'm using to communicate is the air, and the mic is happening to be picking me up close. Your ears are picking me up far away. So the physical layer is about what's defined. It's the wire. As I said, it's the air. In C++ or another object-oriented program, it's the define statement. See, to jump up to the top here, in the application layer, Erlang doesn't, we don't define things in Erlang. We transform data with functions, which leads us to, if you will, into the data link layer, which is a lot like a return value, or the arity of a function, because that's how the data is actually flowing from layer to layer. It's what's returned and it's what's called. The network layer, that's where it's simply, you can say TCP/IP protocol here. Theoretically, I think it breaks down into categorical priority. It took me a while to actually nail this one down into 2 words. The idea of enumerating something, whenever you enumerate something, especially in programming, you have to go and you have to put it in a list, essentially. You have to pick an order to actually laying things out. So when the computer deals with stuff, it has to deal with things in order. For instance, when you stop at a traffic light, there has to be a categorical priority to actually make the system and the network run correctly. And even in that instance, we have ambulances and stuff that can override that priority. So priority is a thing, and it seems to exist on the network layer. You can extend that idea to AI too in different neural networks, if you will, of the priorities actually intersecting into different weights. Transport is basically flow control. Imagine pouring 2 cups back and forth. It's a buffer-to-buffer situation. At the low level of a computer, it's the registers flowing from register to register. The session layer is a lot like time. It's your acknowledgement. It's a login. Essentially, every time you log in, you're starting a new session, and it has a timeout. So it ends up being very temporal at the session layer. Erlang, arguably, I'd say, is very, very, very session layer. I mean, even though it's full stack, we send messages around everywhere. From process to process, and we catch them. And that leads us up to the top 2 layers, which is the presentation and application. In the presentation layer, imagine a doc. If you ever used a document, doc, or XLS, or .text, this is stateful. In the presentation layer, you have states of data. And this is where cryptography exists as well, because you can actually start messing with the bits at that point. And of course, at the top, the application layer, you have your runtime, which is your throughput on the computer. Arguably above that, Elixir has actually started messing with another layer above that, which some people say exists, which is the language layer, because they're messing with the abstract syntax tree. A syntax tree looks like this. Just if you're a beginner, if you've never seen one, there's I would say go look at syntax trees. And I'll take all these resources and I'll bundle them up. So if you're taking notes, you can find it at the bottom of the video. Yeah, we don't need to go over TCP/IP. So here's the Osi Framework, just if you can imagine all the different protocols. It's big, it's girthy, but it can be traversed. The presentation layer. This is where StyledTextCtrl takes form. This is Erlang string characters. You can think of, these are glyphs. In Erlang, every character in almost all computer languages, every character has a number associated with it. But most other languages actually wrap that glyph in some sort of string library. When I first found Erlang, I love this feature. People talk about this feature being like a wart on the language or something. No, this is wonderful. Because when I saw this, I was like, great, the computer can't lie to me. I can actually do accounting, and I can actually see what's happening through the wire. And the fact that you can see all the way down is just a phenomenal facet of the language that doesn't get enough credit. And so when you're actually typing things into a StyledTextCtrl, or pretty much any text box, you're essentially, each key has a number associated with it. Here's a simple Mac keyboard, and here's all the numbers associated with it. You can see every one of them, whether you have a shift or option, gives you a different letter. This is how computers work, if you didn't know. We're talking to YouTubers. Everyone here knows how computers work. And so this was the origination early on the idea of leet speak. I just have to show a picture in San Francisco I found earlier in the week. I was boarding by and I saw that, so it's a fun thing to share. So here we go. let's give away some software. Let's jump into wx and text control. I'm really excited to give this piece away because it's made all my code beautiful. Essentially, you take, you can just type in here, and it will make, it'll print it out in big characters for you so you can actually copy and paste it into your document. So you can really see, and you can make your code beautiful. So people can easily see different sections, you can mark off sections. I want everyone's Erlang and Elixir code to be beautiful, and this is a fantastic tool I use all the time when I'm actually documenting my code. Documenting is very important. So before we jump into the actual beast here, I also want to mention that Erlang's fantastic because it's polymorphic. It's very good at transforming data from one type to another. In my last talk, I gave away a circle. Oh yeah, everyone's going to be getting one of these, by the way, in the audience. So next year, if you want fun handouts, I give them out every year. Now it's a trend. Erlang is polymorphic. It's very good at translating two languages. So I'd really like to make the case that if you're going to learn a language first, Erlang Elixir, simply because they can really easily translate between two languages using this construct. And if you're going to learn a language first, learn the translator language, since it's very easy to step to other languages. That's my one. That's why I really think Erlang is going to be a dominant language when we have wearable tech, is because it can really translate between other languages on top of all the security features. So here's the second big thing I'm going to give away. It is a StyledTextCtrl. It follows off of Joe Armstrong's piece of code that he gave, that when he was asked to put on, he was given, 50,000 computers, Francesco? Something like that. He was given a whole bunch of computers to put code onto, and so he made a program called Become, which was a program you could just send a message to with a function, and it will become that function. And I remember him saying it was probably the most beautiful program you think you could actually make, because it could be anything. So I made the equivalent with StyledTextCtrl. Essentially, it's much simpler. You can just basically hit the button and it will get the text, and you can do something with it. But this gives you anybody in the community the ability to actually give a text box to a friend and then put some code behind it and then actually do something with it. And so you can actually start integrating Erlang and Elixir into your teams and into your lives. Much easier than having them teaching them a shell. Yes, so and so you can see. Also, I put some goodies in this too. So I've hooked it up so you can see on the left here the position's changing. We have some macros and stuff that are actually pumping out these characters. I was going to jump over and talk about the structure of a wxErlang application real quick, like 30 seconds. Essentially, there's an initiation that eventually at some point hits a loop, and then at that point, it will loop. I usually put my functions below, all my supporting functions below the loop. Very recently, something I've been trying to do, and it's been successful with all my projects, is taking right here, in between the initiation portion and the loop portion, putting the very nugget of the code of what I'm trying to make it do in the very center, breaking the loop into two portions. So you can see in here, I can probably, in here we have, in the very center, here's the loop. You can see here, here the loop ends, and I have a macro that says state. And here's that little nugget here of composing and getting the text. And here the loop begins of, here's the receive statement. And here are the events actually coming in. It's a special process. Also, I mentioned this last time, but this is a great way to actually quickly get a state programmed in your WX application, is you define the variables up here. And then you go and you basically add them to your state. So you construct your state at the top, so whenever you're trying to find and add variables, the method becomes adding something, jumping to the top, adding the variable, and you can very quickly add things into the loop this way, and it's a pretty smooth build process. Yes, so this is the difficult part of the StyledTextCtrl, this STC modified event. It has everything. It's essentially, it has all the, this is what you'll be doing. You'll be grabbing text, you'll be figuring out what's going on when the text hits a certain point, and you'll be snagging it, and you'll be doing something with it. I think I threw it over here. So yeah, here's all the text events. And, oh, great. Here it is. I don't know where that, there it was. Okay. I made this as well. I'm going to be giving this out. This is essentially this took me a while, a 2x2 of all the different types of events and what different portions of that record that's coming in actually show. So here's the records at the top, and here are the different portions. You can see here's the modified, here's the style needed, and here's the modified, and here's, these are all those records. So because some of them are affected and some of them aren't, and it's really it's important to see if you want to do something where you're actually snagging the data. This will speed up your build. Now the thing that's kind of complicated here, and something that wx widgets really taught me that was amazing, was bit masks. A bit mask is a string of bits where you treat a 1, 0, or 1 like a switch, on and off. I didn't know about these before I really jumped into wx, and they're really great because you can really shrink data. Now this entire thing here is actually commanded by a bit mask, and you can see here the 001, this little guy. Depending if I'm deleting data or not, it's going to change, right? I think the delete events here. So in this one, 2 events happened: the modified event and the delete, I believe. See down here, mod before delete and perform user, and then here's the perform user mod delete. See the delete, see how it's different? That's because these different bits here, 1 and 2, are actually indicating the different types. So also in this event, I've done a lot of the heavy lifting here so you can actually see what events are happening. It wasn't clear when I jumped into it. That's very important, and that's in the tool. So that's where you're going to find what events are occurring. Yeah, the rest of it, I mean, that's the toughest bit of styled text control I really wanted to talk about here today. I mean, it's a fantastic tool. You have markers and you have indicators. One of the things I would love to try to fix as a community, there's one little broken thing on it where you're actually stuck with only using 3 markers and 3 indicators, and I think it was 32 styles. Yeah. And 32 ways of different, like styling, that means like colors and stuff, of styling the text. You can see in the compose section here that this is how you style text, very quick. Not going to get into it. It took me a while to hack it apart because there was little to no documentation of how to do it in Erlang, but I'll be given this way too. It's essentially you parse it. Don't use the internal parser. It's a pain. It's really slow. It's just it's part of the Scintilla thing. Use Erlang. You guys know that Erlang and Elixir are excellent at parsing. You don't need to explain that. But you basically will make a function that will call these styles. You can see there's 32 of them. So we're bound by 32. Allegedly, and you can change how many indicators versus how many bits you have. Like 2 to the third is 8, and that's actually I think you get 8 in. No, you get 3 because it's a bit mass. So you literally the indicator's on or off, where the other 5 bits are actually apportioned to what style is actually occurring. And then you literally just call the function that's actually going to style the text, and it will literally just parse, and it will just style each of the characters. It's quick. I mean, you can see here. I have a lexical. I have a boom. Lexical analyzer, and you can see it styling in different colors. Yeah. So have that. Make cool things with that. Yeah. Cheers. Yeah.
Handout section of the talk, right?
Oh yeah, here everyone's going to get. There, go ahead.
I can pass them out.
Yeah. Any questions? I guess. That's stole your thunder. Brujo.
Yeah. So the code on the right is the one that supports the screen on the left. There.
Mm-hmm.
And is it abstracted somehow that I can create my own app without all that, or if I want to write something like it, I have to, write all those things?
Oh no, I'm gonna give them away.
Okay, but
yeah,
that code is in a module, then I can write my code in another one.
Oh yeah, I usually use, I've done it a couple ways. I've imported it. I've called making the style text control from another function and making kind of generic style text controls. Yeah, if you actually look at the where the style text control is actually built, it's actually built. It's literally, it only takes one argument. It takes a panel, or it takes a parent. It's somewhere down here. So here, I can find it quick because I have.
Yeah, I think that's precisely my point.
This here is it. This is it. Yeah.
But it's the code that I need to work with. It's just that bad.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's you like anything in Erlang, it teaches you to abstract. If anything, this has taught me to abstract generic patterns pretty, regularly and whenever I possibly can. Like GUI programming is usually pretty robust.
How do you write a code comment in a code like this?
A comment, you would use a percent sign.
It's just a style.
I think it means the tool you showed earlier that makes the big text.
Oh, you can comment. I think I made comments blue. Hey, this is a comment. Oh. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'll have you check out the parser when you. It's a pretty rudimentary parser. Sorry, it's a lexical analyzer. I'm actually working on the parser. It's tougher to do that than you think, especially when you're just using Erlang code. And you're not using like leaks or yek or however you say that.